How should foreign nations respond to the Russian invasion of Ukraine? It's March 2022, and Americans are divided. Let's first dive deeper into the issue.
Ukraine is on fire. The country is being decimated before the eyes of the world. The impact on civilians is reaching terrifying proportions. Countless innocent people, including women and children, have been killed. And with each passing hour, two things are increasingly clear. First, it keeps getting worse. Second, whatever the outcome, this war will have no winners, only losers. Further escalation of the war, whether by accident or design, threatens all of humanity. Raising the alert of Russian nuclear forces is a bone-chilling development. The prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility.
My guest today is Oleksandra Matviichuk, a human rights lawyer and civil society leader living in Kyiv, Ukraine. She serves as head of the Ukraine Center for Civil Liberties. Last year, Oleksandra was nominated by Ukraine for the United Nations Committee Against Torture. In this episode, we discuss current civilian life and military preparations in Kyiv, the ongoing debate over foreign supplies and troops, evidence of war crimes, Putin's approval rating in Russia, and more. Whether you agree or disagree with today's guest, I invite you to join us with an open mind as we work to heal the division on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Oleksandra, thank you for joining the podcast today. Can we start with an introduction?
My name is Oleksandra Matviichuk. I'm human rights defender, head of Center for Civil Liberties. Center for Civil Liberties is a human rights organization which was created in 2007, and we work throughout the Ukraine in order to protect human rights.
So at a high level, can you walk me through what your experience has been over the past few weeks since the most recent Russian invasion started?
When Russian invasion started in February this year, we restored our initiative Євромайдан SOS, which we created during the Revolution of Dignity. During Revolution of Dignity, we brought up several thousands of volunteers in order to provide legal and other aid to persecuted protesters. And we provide assistance to people who were beaten, tortured, injured, accused in fabricated criminal or administrative charge, then missing and killed people. Now, Євромайдан SOS work on several directions. We do international advocacy, we share truthful information, we document war crimes, and we provide logistical support and connect people with need with appropriate initiatives who can provide such kind of help.
And can you outline where in Ukraine have you been located?
I'm in Kyiv.
With that, for my next question, I want to jump into a news clip and then get your response.
In a fiery speech that was broadcast across Russia and the world, Putin demanded and warned Ukraine to cease all combat operations against the rebels. Otherwise, Putin said, the responsibility for continuing the bloodshed will lay on the shoulders of the Ukrainian regime. Putin also essentially laid claim to Ukraine. He said Ukraine is not just a neighboring country, it's an integral part of our history, culture. Modern Ukraine was entirely created by Russia, by Bolshevik communist Russia, to be exact.
Is Vladimir Putin justified in making this relation between Russia and Ukraine?
Vladimir Putin tried to return us to the past, to the time of Soviet Union. That's why they used this false theory that Ukrainian nation does not exist, that we are the same as Russian people, that we have no our own culture, no our national identity, no our right for independence, and have no right for our democratic choice. That's why he started this war in 2014, when Ukraine obtained a chance to provide a quick democratic transformation. That's why he now started a full-scale invasion and killing Ukrainian civilians, because we are fighting for our democratic choice and for the rights to have a democratic choice as such.
Have you encountered Russian soldiers over the past 3 weeks? And if so, what have those encounters been like?
I have been documenting war crimes for 8 years already. And now we continue this work. Russian troops used war crimes as a tool of conducting war. They deliberately shell on civilian objects, on civilian critical infrastructure. They attacked humanitarian corridors. They attacked medical personnel when they tried to provide assistance to injured people. They used indiscriminated weapons in populated area, which is prohibited by Geneva and Hague Convention. And we document all these crimes in order sooner or later to see Putin and his surrounding and all of these executors of these cruel crimes on the court. I'm in Kyiv, and Kyiv is still not occupied. And it's a huge loss for Russian army, because they was sure that when they appeared in Ukrainian border, at least 3 or 4 days, and they will seize Kyiv. But Kyiv still resists, and I hope that we will survive.
The citizens of Kyiv, where are they staying currently?
Every second resident of Kyiv left the city, and it's very understandable when you will see a picture of Mariupol or Kharkiv. It totally destroyed cities where Russians leveling the city with the ground. And in Mariupol, people are for days without water, food, electricity, medical care. The dead body are lay on the streets, and there is impossible to bury them. So I understand these people who left Kyiv, but those who remains are ready to fight and finding our own places in order to provide input to the general struggle.
Now, overall, have most people in the city chosen to stay at their current residences for the time being, or has there been a collective effort in the city to move elsewhere?
People who remains in Kyiv find their own places to be useful, as I told. The whole family is joined to territorial defense. Some join to medical staff. Some people provide logistical support. As I told, we documented war crimes and connect people with need with appropriate initiatives. So there are a lot of functions which people now fulfilled.
And now you mentioned people of Kyiv are ready to fight. What is the interaction like with citizens and the Ukrainian military?
Ukraine is a nation of self-organizations. If you ask me about one general military plan, it's not exist. Like everybody know what has to be done on their own places. And that's why there's hundreds of initiatives emerge in different spheres: humanitarian assistance, defense, evacuation, medical care, etc. Maybe you have never experienced how to be in the city which tried to be circled by Russian troops, and you think that there is an algorithm, a joint algorithm for everybody. No, it's not like this. It's like a clear understanding of your function.
In the city of Kyiv, are most citizens armed at this point?
When we ask weapon which can protect Ukrainian sky, which can protect people from Russian rockets, missiles, and tanks. We need fighter planes. Not every citizen of Kyiv can guide by fighter planes, but we need it urgently. We need air defense systems in order to protect cities from rockets, missiles, and tanks. We need a lot of other weapons which can be used by people who have special qualification. And yes, we also need supplies for ordinary people, because when civilians join to territorial defense, they have no guns and no military background. But first of all, we need serious weapons.
So as a segue, I want to use another video clip before I ask my next question.
We will not fight the Third World War in Ukraine. Putin's war against Ukraine will never be a victory. Democrats are rising to meet the moment, rallying the world on the side of peace and security. We're showing the strength and we'll never falter. But look, the idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III. Okay?
Do you think that either sending equipment or sending troops is a declaration of war from the country that does so?
I think that a lot of Western politicians still think in the logic of the world which is not exist at all. When Russia started this large-scale invasion, parallel in 4 directions, Russia started this invasion not only against Ukraine, but against whole civilized world. And Ukraine now is only far front of this battle. And if you will see the video from Russian TV channel and hear what Russian propagandists tell, you will clearly understand that they will not stop in Ukraine, never. So it's not a battle between Russia and Ukraine. It's a battle between autocracy and values of free world. And that's why we ask our international allies to be more active and to protect Ukraine. It's Ukrainians who are now fighting, not them. But we ask weapons from them, which can help us to resist. The old world is not exist anymore, and they have to take this reality.
You mentioned weapons, but do you think that foreign nations should be sending troops as well?
I understand that it's unbelievable. That's why we ask weapons. It's Ukrainians who will die for the freedom and for democracy and for human rights. But we hope that we will not be unarmed, that democracies which have the same values provide us weapons in at least in order to be able to protect themselves.
Should there be a no-fly zone?
We ask no-fly zone because Russian deliberately target civilian objects. But if not, once again, provide us fighter planes, we will protect our Ukrainian sky by our own forces.
I want to jump into the news coverage of this current conflict. Where do you think most Ukrainians are getting their news information from about this conflict?
It depends where people now are. Because if these people in Vorzel, Gostomel, Bucha, Mariupol, Chernihiv, they have no connection at all and no news at all. Look, they are in basement for days without electricity. Other people try to use official sources because it's very hard to understand what's going on in the country.
What are the war crimes that you've seen?
Deliberate shelling on civilian objects, civilian infrastructure, and civilian population, especially objects with a high level of protection, kindergarten, schools, hospitals. The bright examples is shelling on maternal hospital in Mariupol, which had huge coverage in the world press. Also perfidy. Russians pretend that they are civilians in order to approach more closely to Ukrainian position. Russian soldiers used civil objects. We documented when they used ambulance car in Kyiv, and this is a huge violation of international humanitarian law to use medical personnel for military goals. Russian used Ukrainian uniforms, which is also prohibited. Deliberate attack to medical personnel. We have several cases, at least, when they shelling on medic and kill them, injure them, when medics try to provide assistance to injured people. Using indiscriminative weapon, unguided bombs, cluster munition, other kind of munition in populated areas, which is prohibited because these indiscriminated weapons can provide a huge casualties among civilians.
How can foreign nations enforce these war crimes on Russia?
I hope that, I will do everything in my life to see Putin and his surrounding on the court. And this is a huge responsibility of international community because Russia did these war crimes in Chechnya. Russia did these war crimes in Transnistria. Moldova. Russia did this war crimes in Abkhazia, Ossetia, in Georgia. Russia did these war crimes and used chemical weapon in Syria against civilian population, and Russia have never been punished. And this is the result of such impunity, because Putin understood that international community will keep silence and do nothing when he killing innocent people. But now he faced with Ukrainians, and we will do everything to make this international justice to work.
With war crimes, there's graphic footage that I've seen across social media, but that footage often doesn't make it into mainstream media. Do you feel that mainstream media has an obligation to show graphic footage to show the true impact?
I need from international community not to see our war like a TV show, and it's a real war and real killings. It's a real people. I need proactive actions. I don't care how much videos they show on the TV. I'm more care about what steps states are do in order to stop these war crimes.
What do you think is the largest misconception or something that's been falsely reported regarding this conflict?
I have no time to provide analytics. We sleep 3 or 4 hours a day. So I hope that at least Western democracies don't use Russian propaganda, because 2 days ago, Lavrov told that we have no plan to attack any country. We haven't attacked Ukraine either. So it's so cynical lie that I have no even word to describe my feeling.
And you mentioned Russian propaganda. There's mixed studies, but one shows that more than 2/3 of Russians agree with Putin's decision to invade, and that his approval has actually increased since doing so. Do you think this is truthful?
Yes, Russia's nation is nation of former imperia. And unfortunately, they haven't learned historical lessons, and Germany nations did. And when Putin occupied Crimea, we saw that his popularity and his political rating become increasingly high. Russians really need war in their majority. They really want to occupy neighbor countries. There is a tiny minority, our colleagues, Russian human rights defenders, some Russian intellectual elites, some active people who understand that war is an awful thing, but it's tiny minority. And majority of Russians are responsible for this war.
We are recording this on March 13th. What do you see as the immediate next steps that you think will occur in this conflict?
I ask ordinary people to push pressure to their governments in order to provide Ukraine serious weapons and in order to impose against Russia serious economical sanctions. When you hear your Western politicians, you can have impression that West provides Ukraine everything which we need. But it's not true. When we go into details, for example, about SWIFT, you will see that only several Russian banks are banned from the SWIFT. This measure is not taken into force yet. Among these several banks, there is no Sberbank, the biggest bank of Russia. And we need all Russian and all the Russian bank ban from SWIFT immediately. And these measures can show Putin that he will pay high price for this invasion and stop provide finance to the military machine. If not, I don't know what will be within several hours or several days. I know for sure only one thing, that Ukraine will win, and sooner or later Putin will lose, because history plays against Putin.
If Ukraine wins, if there's some sort of treaty or compromise, do you think this can be maintained, particularly given that Ukraine and Russia are bordering nations?
When Ukraine succeeds in the democratic transformation, it will have a huge impact to the whole post-Soviet region and to the Russia itself. That's why Putin started this war. He not afraid of NATO. He is afraid of ideas of freedom. It's very important for every people in the world to have the democratic region here, because only spread of freedom makes this world safer.
Oleksandra, do you have a final message for listeners, particularly given a majority are a Western audience?
I'm an ordinary people. I'm a human rights defender who protects human rights in Ukraine for years. And I know for sure that there is one thing which can change the situation for better. It's massive mobilization of ordinary people in their countries. Ordinary people have much more power than they even imagine. I ask you not to stay indifferent. I ask you to stand with Ukraine.
And if someone wants to learn more about you or make a difference, what are the recommended resources to go to?
We have a Facebook page, Євромайдан SOS, written in Ukrainian language. We have in Twitter, Євромайдан SOS, it's English. And we have YouTube channel, Євромайдан SOS. You can use these resources in order to know more about our work during the war.
Well, Oleksandra, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Whether you agree or disagree with today's guests, I thank you for joining us with an open mind. If there's a guest or topic you'd like to have on the show, you can message me on all social media platforms through the handle Heal Our Division. Take care and stay kind. We have more in common than that which divides us.